Hello, everyone. And oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm all green today. I don't know why. Maybe because the lighting is weird outside because it started to snow in Indiana today. Anyway, I don't know why I have this weird green halo effect, but we're just going to go with it. How about that? Welcome to Lead at Any Level Live. My name is Amy C. Waninger. I am the Inclusion Catalyst, and I am excited to be with you today. The thing that I want to talk about today is this notion, this thing that we keep hearing in all these reports that are trying to be so salacious and clickbaity about diversity training doesn't work. I got some thoughts on that, as I'm sure you can imagine. But before I get there, I would love to know who's with me today. I can't always see you, but if you comment and let me know who you are and where you're coming from, I would love to give you a shout out, say hello. And while you're at it, let me know, has your company invested in training on diversity and inclusion or inclusive leadership? That's what I want to know today. Whether you're watching live or you're watching on replay, let me know in the comments. Have you been through some sort of diversity and inclusion or inclusive leadership training at your company or not? I'm curious. I'm also curious to know if you felt like the training was worthwhile. Did it stick? Now, here's what I want to tell you. There is this kind of mantra going around in D&I spaces, in learning and development spaces. Some of the bigger, magazines, business magazines are saying like, oh, diversity and inclusion training doesn't work. And here's the thing. They might be right. And I'm saying this as a diversity and inclusion practitioner, as an inclusive leadership trainer, as an inclusive leadership consultant. They might be right. Maybe it doesn't work. But I want to tell you why I think it doesn't work, what circumstances are in place that keep it from working, and what can be done to make it work. And if you'll excuse me for 1 second, I got a bit of a cold today. Okay, so here's what I think is happening. A lot of companies say that they're doing diversity and inclusion training, and what they're really doing is unconscious bias training. Now, there is nothing wrong with unconscious bias training as a first step or a starting point in this work. Okay, I won't say nothing wrong, but it's a decent first step. It's a good place to start for people to be aware that biases that they may or may not know about might exist in their workplace. That's not a horrible thing for us to tell people. I think there are a couple of things going on though. Number one, I think a lot of companies stop there, right? They say, well, we did unconscious bias training and nothing changed. And so we tried that and it just didn't work. A lot of times though, unconscious bias training doesn't go far enough. It tells people that, people show up and they say, hey, having unconscious bias is part of the human condition. To have a brain means to have bias. And, there's nothing wrong with, having these shortcuts that your brain relies on to get the work done. That's how we operate. Where I think unconscious bias training often doesn't go far enough is it doesn't tell us what to do about it. It doesn't tell us how to get past it, how to move beyond it, how to interrupt the patterns that lead us to bad assumptions about ourselves, about people, about processes, about others. We don't do enough to deconstruct why we have it, and we don't do enough to say, here's how to overcome it. So a lot of times folks will contact me and they want unconscious bias training. And when I say why, they say, well, we have a diversity and inclusion initiative. And when I ask, well, what are your measures of success? What results do you want to see from this? They often don't know. And so if you're saying training doesn't work, but you're hiring a trainer and you don't know what results you want to see, and you don't really know what you want people to do differently as a result of the training, or you don't ask people to do anything differently as a result of the training, your training's probably not going to work because you don't have the end in mind. You're not starting from the place where you know what to expect. And so you sort of leave this open and you have no idea what to expect and nothing happens. And then you say, well, it didn't work. If that's been your experience, I would love to know. Let me know in the comments. And again, if you're just joining me, let me know, where you're coming from. And if you've done any kind of diversity and inclusion training in your organization, and do you think it worked? But here's the deal. I want you to think about this a different way. I want you to think about it from a completely different perspective. Take diversity and inclusion out of the picture for just a moment and think about anything else you would learn. Let's say playing the piano. Now, if you wanted someone to come in and teach your entire organization how to play the piano, you probably wouldn't have them do a 1-hour lunch and learn on a Tuesday or any other day of the week for that matter. Have them leave your organization and expect next week everybody can play the piano. Am I right? Okay. So, why do we approach other types of training that way? Here's the thing. If you want to learn to play the piano, or if you want your whole team to learn to play the piano, what would you do? First of all, you'd get everybody a piano or a keyboard, right? You'd give them all the sheet music that they needed. You would have somebody sit down with them and talk to them about, how a piano works. You would have them feel what the keys feel like. You would have them learn a new language, which is written music. You would have them learn a little bit of music theory, but you wouldn't stop there. You'd get them actually playing the piano so they could hear what it sounded like. You would have them, start off small with things that are easier, right? You might have them play scales or arpeggios. You might have them learn a few notes or a simple song so they can see progress early. These are all things that you would do, but then you would expect them to practice, and you would expect them to try harder material over time, and you would expect them to gain proficiency and gain confidence, and that would feed on itself. And you would expect that if this were important to your organization, you would actually, maybe observe them playing piano occasionally or, have something built into their objectives that they would be proficient and be able to play a song with only so many mistakes, or be able to, play certain difficulty level of music at some point in time. Or you may even have, where they're teaching others how to do this at some point in the future. So here's the deal. If you wouldn't expect people to learn to play piano from a 1-hour seminar one time, that they may or may not be required to go to, that they may or may not be interested in, that they may or may not see the value of, then you probably can't expect them to learn anything else that way either. And when it comes to inclusive leadership skills, you really want to do, first of all, you want to begin with the end in mind. What is it that you want to see as a result of your training? What is it that you want people to take away? What behaviors do you want to change? Changing hearts and minds is a difficult task, and people can put up walls and defenses when you tell them that their beliefs are wrong or their thinking is wrong. But if you can say, look, we're engaged in some ineffective behaviors in our workplace, and we want to change some behaviors so that we're more effective, so that people feel valued, so that we don't have as high a turnover, or people are more engaged in their work. When you set those kinds of measures of success up, and you explain that this is behavior-based and there are actual results, this is tied to business initiatives, you give people a reason and accountability around learning these new skills. You treat this like a change initiative and not like a flavor of the day or something that they can ignore at their leisure. Those things make a difference. And so I would ask, please, before you say diversity and inclusion training doesn't work, think about if you've set yourself, your teams, your employees, your leaders up for success. And for that matter, your trainers. Is it clear what the objectives are? Is it clear what you want from them? And what success looks like for your training initiative? This is so important. Again, a lot of times people will contact me and they say, well, we just want to do something. We want to have something that we can say, we've done, or we want people to be aware. Okay, well, if awareness is your measure of success, do you have a baseline measurement of how aware people are right now? What do you want that new measurement to look like? What are you going to do after the training to ensure that people are talking about it, that the learning is being reinforced, that you're operationalizing the content? There's a lot more work than just showing up for a lunch and learn. And that's what I want people to understand. That's what I want you to understand. And that's what I want the authors of these articles that say this training doesn't work to understand. You certainly would not expect to learn to play piano in a 1-hour lunch and learn, and you can't learn any other skill that way either. It takes a lot more than that. If this is something that is important to you, if this is something that is important in your organization, I would absolutely love to talk to you about your goals, about what you want to see change as a result of your training initiatives, How do you want your leaders to act and engage differently? How do you want your employees to act and behave and engage differently? How are you measuring success, and what baseline measurement are you starting from? This is all so important before we say that the training does or does not work. If this is something that's important to you and your organization, if you believe the training can work, if it's done the right way, and you'd like to see some really good training on these topics, if you'd like to change the way leaders lead to be more inclusive, you can schedule time with me at workwithlaal.com. That'll put you right on my calendar, and we can chat about what is it that you're trying to accomplish in your org. Why is that important to you, and what's the best approach to move forward? I love having those conversations. I would love to help you get where you want to go. I want to help you be the organization that keeps your employees and keeps them engaged, because your leaders are inclusive. Your leaders are leading diverse teams well. Your leaders are showing up as empathic, authentic, vulnerable, and effective leaders. And that's the organization that I hope you aspire your organization to be. Now, every Monday, as you know, every Monday at noon Eastern, I offer you these kinds of insights on Lead at Any Level Live. You can also this week, every weekday at 4 p.m., catch my Leader Tips series. And this is 5 tips for inclusive leaders. Very quick takeaways, 3 minutes or less. I promise. If it goes over 3 minutes, I re-record it to be more succinct. It's hard to believe on a Monday rant that I can be succinct, but I promise you I can. And every day this week, I'm going to share with you a different tip for how to make your learning stick, how to make the training stick, so that you're not only getting the results that you seek with your training and development, but also you're getting a good return on that training investment, because these things cost money as well. They should, but you want to make sure that you're getting return on that investment. So that's every weekday at 4 p.m. this week. Topic changes every week. And then on Thursday, you will want to join me for my next Including You podcast interview. And this week, give me 1 second to find it. This week, I will be interviewing Travel Kalski. He is on the board of directors for Employmetrics, and they do people data with a focus on diversity and inclusion in people metrics. So you'll want to tune in for that on Thursday at noon Eastern, right here on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. If you miss Thursday, you can also catch it on my YouTube channel or leadatanylevel.com. You can go to actually includingyoupodcast.com and get the list of all the episodes right there. Or you can tune in Friday. Wherever you get your podcasts, do a search for Living Corporate. Living Corporate is the audio podcast series that Including You belongs to, and we're the Friday show in that feed. So if you're a subscriber to Living Corporate, you'll get us on Fridays in your podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. That's all I have for you this week. I hope that you all have an amazing week, that you are surviving whatever weather and news is coming your way this week. I know that we've been through a lot lately. And I'm here if you need me, if there is something that I can do to help your organization in terms of building the kinds of capabilities for inclusive leaders, or even finding a baseline measure of where you are in your inclusion journey. I would love to help you with that. And I will see you all next week at Monday, noon Eastern, for another edition of Lead at Any Level Live, and hopefully a few more times this week for tips and insights for inclusive leaders. Thank you all so much. Have a great week.